Actually, what we noticed is that our last three investments were teams that started in Gurgaon at INVESTOPAD and one in Delhi, and then they moved down to Bangalore to search for more talent. Right, and with that trend happening and with better product companies coming out of Bangalore, it made a lot of sense for us to be there. So we're finding better talent, a higher concentration of product-focused technology startups coming out of Bangalore. That's why we feel it's important to be there. So we see different mixes of companies. I think around the NCR, you see companies that have a bit more of an operational focus, and we're starting to see a shift in companies. So commerce-based companies tend to be over here, logistics, things like that are based up in the NCR. But in Bangalore, we're starting to see a lot of pure software innovations. And there's different clusters that are focusing on different things. Chennai, for example, is doing great SaaS stuff. But Bangalore is at scale being able to do pure product innovations quite well. I think for us at that early stage, the most important thing is the people. And that's why our model is so focused on the whole idea with the spaces is to bring people in very early on. So typically we get in teams through referrals when they're at an idea stage. And by co-locating with them over a period of time, we get to know them, they get to know us, they see the value we bring on board. But from both sides, we get very, very comfortable with each other. And I think at a seed stage, you need to embrace the uncertainty of what's going to happen. And the idea will change, what the company is doing may even change. But as long as the people have that capability, that tenacity, and that grit to do what they're doing, I think ultimately at that stage you're investing just in people. So it's about being able to get comfortable with that. So we have an internal resource that works with a lot of our companies at the early stage, and what we invest in essentially what ends up being engineering founders. And it's hard to get design talent at that kind of scale that every founding team has a designer on board. So we have a design resource in-house that works with teams to help them create their first iteration of product, to help them conduct their user testing, to help them get comfortable all the way from the whole storyboarding, the wireframing phase, down to the sort of final pixel perfect first iteration of a product, to be able to ship that product early on. And what it does is, I think early on it imbibes a user-centric thinking in founders, which is really important, because what we cannot do is we can't copy-paste what we think is great design from the US. Because if you look at a lot of the products over here that work really, really well, they may not be beautiful to look at, right? In the conventional sense of what American products are like. Yet they work really, really well here. Their conversion rates are better, they score better with users, transactions might be higher. And that's because we're building for a very different market. So a user-centered approach around design is pretty important. And that's what we try and imbibe pretty early on, which is that you need to be testing with users early on. Even if you think it's prettier, it may not work better. So we try and focus a lot on the user. We've done about 9 in the last year or so. Which ones? I can't name favorites, obviously, but I think we've got a healthy mix of companies. We've got a couple in the B2B space. So Zenetics is one of the exciting ones that's doing energy analytics for large consumers of electricity.
You know, I think you understand our thesis quite clearly. The thesis is to actually spend time with a lot of these portfolio founders, provide all the in-house services we have for them, which includes design, digital marketing, recruitment, and also a lot of help with ops and sales. So all the deals that we've done thus far, 7 out of 9, are actually companies that were born and bred at INVESTOPAD. You know, our average check size thus far, seeing as we're doing deals personally, seems to be anywhere between a 10 and 25 lakh number. So that's sort of what we're comfortable with. And the emphasis is not so much on the capital that we bring on the table, right? What we tend to do is bring a lot of people that add strategic value to that company. So, you know, for example, companies in the energy space, we brought in industry experts who know the hardware sector particularly well and may be able to help with a lot of BD and operational work, things that we as professional investors can't necessarily focus on full time. For us, we do 10, 12 deals a year. For them, they perhaps do a deal every second or third year. So the amount of time they have the option of spending with those teams is also considerably higher. The way they can help those teams is also tenfold of what we can do from an operational and biz dev standpoint. And that's incredibly important. So we actually try and bridge the gap between a lot of our teams and what they actually require in terms of help in the operational space. The problem is that a lot of, every Tom, Dick and Harry today wants to be an angel investor. It's it's almost like dinner table conversation for people, and it's actually scary when that happens because everybody wants a piece of the pie. But I think it's important for people to recognize that this is the highest risk asset class you can possibly invest in. You're practically investing in a PowerPoint presentation and a couple of people and their skill set and luck. So it's a very, very precarious place. I think we're very, very careful as to how we make our bets. I think our whole model of actually co-locating, spending time with a lot of these teams, adding the inherent resources that we offer to these teams at an early stage, and then connecting them to people who can actually add operational and sales value is a relatively foolproof method, I'd like to say. Thus far our success rate for follow-on funding from INVESTOPAD teams has been quite promising. So look, we're certainly in a bubble, there's no doubting that. But I'd like to think that the businesses we're backing are real businesses with real needs, and we're excited to be involved with them at such an early stage and be part and parcel of the whole process and story. Look, I think again the focus right now is, our first big setup was Gurgaon. We're in the process of opening up a second floor there right now, so we're across about 12,000 square feet in Gurgaon. We have a small little spot in Delhi, which is a great little catchment area for a lot of the IIT Delhi students to come in and work from as well. We've just opened up shop in Koramangala, and perhaps after this we may just do something small in Powai, but we haven't quite decided yet. So I think our focus will carry on working closely with a bunch of high quality teams in the three areas that we've put together, Gurgaon, Delhi and now Koramangala. The focus will still very much be investment led, and we will hopefully be beefing up a lot of our internal resources in order to be able to work with a larger span of teams and invest in a couple more teams than we did last year as well. We're actually already seeing a lot of good deals. It's only the middle of January right now, but there's a couple of very exciting deals that we're working on at the moment, which you should hear about soon enough, I hope. Fundraising is not validation. Just focus. Honestly, there's a huge bubble right now, and it's slowly going, as you said. Follow-on capital is hard to come by now. So focus on building a real product with real validation and real users, and don't fool yourself in the process. I think that's important.
I love this man, admire, respect, look up to, and so do you, and I'm sure so does everyone in this country and across the world.